Hey, welcome back. Getting to episode 18 of the stocks you recommended with more interesting companies once again. Again, check out the rest of the series and make sure to look into the affiliate links as well, it's by far the best way to support the channel. A single affiliate generates like 2-3 months of YouTube revenue, which is terrible by the way, and you'd be the second person to ever do it if you do. By the way, if you use some kind of investing app or anything and would like me to try to negotiate a discount or something, let me know. I was surprised to have a big company like Seeking Alpha actually reach out to me when I had like a bit over 2000 subs. That money will then be used for an editor, meaning I can focus more on the research and provide more content for you. Again, any suggestion, leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. Everything is and will remain free, so leave a like to support the channel. Now, StoneCo, this is a Brazilian fintech company offering services similar to PayPal, especially to small and medium companies. We see very significant 40-50% increases in clients, net income, EPS and so on. The stock really didn't follow, so let's see if there might be an opportunity while the market is sleeping on it. I can see from the start very little coverage because they are South American, but we've seen Mercado Libre in the series before do phenomenally well and grow into a 100 billion company. Again, we see really impressive growth, with the revenue pretty much quadrupling since 2020 and the net income more than doubling. The stock, however, really doesn't show it, and it's not even because they issued a lot, they didn't. They had some acquisitions in the past that weren't that great, but even then, I think this price is pretty interesting. There could also be fair worries about the competition, but in an expanding market like Brazil and with potential for a regional expansion, the ratios don't really show this potential. Even on Seeking Alpha, we see all the growth and profitability, except for the margins recently, significantly above the sector median. And given the price, the valuation is also very well above the market in pretty much anything you look at. The cash flow is generally a bit tricky with this kind of business because of changes in working capital from the banking and credit side of the company. Financially, they are in a great position with the current assets covering all the liabilities. They don't have a lot of debt, which is good, but they also don't have that many non-current assets, which is normal for this type of company. So you get around $2.7 billion in equity on a $3.5 billion market cap, which is actually very good for a company in this industry. Obviously, probably the best thing that can happen to such a company is any kind of economic recovery or even a boom. This is like the ultimate exposure, especially to online and offline small and medium businesses. All the payments, banking, credit, software and so on could continue to do very well in such an environment. Such a company is, in my opinion, much better than Square, for example, because 1. They are also profitable on top of delivering even better growth, and 2. They are very cheap for what they can make. Although you can't even compare the margins, Block is more than 10 times more expensive after they also crashed a lot. The market seems to value them quite the same on the revenue while ignoring everything else. Even PayPal is more expensive and doesn't have nearly the same potential to grow and financial health. But looking at Pegs, a local competitor, they may not be that unique. These two are actually pretty similar, and if you like one, you should definitely check the other to get a better idea. Again, valued at something like 2-3x the revenue, no matter the growth, profit, stability, risk and so on. But on the bright side, if you think about it, if they continue to double or triple the revenue in time, the stock would also follow. Especially if they eventually pay dividends, this can sum up to really good profits. They are actually doing some buybacks, but in a sustainable manner, not overdoing it. So the upside can be especially good if the local economy improves, opening the potential at least for a regional international expansion. I think this is a good company with huge potential to grow, and it's definitely something that I want to dig deeper into. The potential of South America plus economy recovering and everything is not something to ignore. Even if the market continues to value these companies based on the revenue, they definitely have potential to be a multi-bagger. Anyway, the great financials, good margin, huge growth lately and even more potential make it a very interesting company to dig into. Plus, there is the slight chance out there that we could see another emerging market boom, which would make this really good. However, there are other options in the region that could be pretty interesting, such as Pegs, which some people consider even better. Now, Meta, there is no way you don't know it. It's basically Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Threads lately and a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. They had a bunch of great quarters with increases in net income, revenue, EPS and pretty much everything. Overall, they have about 3.3 billion people using their products daily, which is definitely impressive. The revenue per user is also up significantly, but this might be related to election years on the planet. The growth in ad impressions dropped significantly after a very good year, and if you think about it, there is an obvious limit to how much they can make organically. You know, Facebook is dying, Instagram is at peak, there is competition, and you can only show so many ads. Yes, they can do stuff like Instagram some years ago or Threads recently and generate more users and time per user, but they have to constantly do something to meet the market's expectations. Because sure, price increases, maybe do some cost savings, a new kind of ad here and there, and you can generate some 5, 8, 10% growth, but the market doesn't buy this for 10%. So they had a bunch of good quarters, but I think even more impressive is that they managed to basically double the revenue, net income, operating and free cash flow since 2020. And all of that while the metaverse drained some tens of billions on top. The potential from that is still there, but I think there are some fundamental issues that they are thankfully aware of, but more on that in a bit. They can make something like 50 billion in cash flow now, placing them at an okay ratio of around 30 today. If they somehow keep growing like this can at least be a fair value, but that's if they can do it. Financially, they are very healthy, similar to a majority of big tech, with the current assets pretty much covering the total liabilities. So the debt definitely shouldn't be an issue, especially when they can make so much money. You as an investor generally can't have issues with such a balance sheet. It's not perfect, but it's very good. They could also get into debt or even better issue stock to develop, which is a huge competitive advantage that big tech generally has and allows them to grow as they do. But the problem is that with more and more regulation, Meta doesn't really offer that much targetability. This is what basically made Meta a decade ago. You want to get to someone that's this and that from this area who does this? Okay, that was easy and cheap. Now, with privacy and more laws around it, the quality of Meta, which wasn't amazing even before, is even lower. I work with it and I can tell you, I'm very up to date with all the aspects and especially the bugs. Eventually, when you see that it doesn't sell anymore and all you see there is trash or brainwashing content that you don't want to put your brand next to and the price is up, you look for other ways to spend the marketing budget. Many companies already started spreading the budget to TikTok or focus more on partners directly rather than Meta even before the recent privacy regulations. This company desperately needs a way to keep growing and they know it, hence the aggressive investments in the metaverse and even the rebranding. They are not in an easy position and at such a price and with the current market expectations, it's very easy to underdeliver and see this crash significantly. Again, as we've seen a lot lately, even if you do very well, if that's not enough for the market, this can easily crash. Buying at all-time highs when there is political risk and actually a lot of uncertainty is not optimal in my opinion. They simply come with too much risk for that much potential. Sure, they can continue to do very well and the metaverse can really pay off, but what if they don't? Then you have a company that wasted tens of billions on literally nothing with declining products. The market sentiment can easily change, as we've seen with them not long ago. Have the cash flow drop to 40 billion and the ratio to 20, which is generally a fair price, and that's a 50% crash. The number of users means nothing if the quality is down, and to be fair, they can easily lie about it. For so long they had pretty much a monopoly, but now that's being addressed by both competition and regulators. Now, if you ask me, as someone that's working with that, they are definitely doing something fishy, on top of countless new bugs over and over. There are so many obvious irregularities that made me almost certain that they are using bots to basically guarantee that they take most of your money. Be it comments, likes, clicks or whatever you target, in my opinion they definitely either use bots or they aren't honest with the results, or to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe there is some kind of bug. Again, the platform as an advertiser is full of bugs with every single new update. How do you verify that? You can't, it's their algorithm. I think some kind of leak and investigation after would be the only way to know for sure. But if that happens and it turns out to be true, it would be very ugly for the company. So overall, a financially healthy company that makes a ton of money valued relatively okay for what they can make. But it's a matter of risk and reward, which I don't think are that good. I'd rather go for Alphabet or Amazon because the fundamental products are getting better and better and the companies just seem overall better in my opinion. They don't have nearly the same problems and this is very serious for Meta. Maybe we don't see it now, but if something doesn't change and the price keeps going up, this is getting into a very risky territory. Again, even just a little drop in cash flow and the market lowering the valuation to what's usually okay for tech means something like a 50% crash today. The level of risk is honestly much higher now than 2 years ago when this was below 100. The company didn't even change that much, but what's different is the market sentiment and the higher regulatory pressure. By the way, unrelated, this is up like 6 times from 2 years ago. Can you imagine how bad the S&P would have been without the Magnificent 7? Now, Match, this is the company behind Tinder, Match.com, OkCupid and more similar dating apps. The stock is down significantly from the pandemic and lockdown hype, even though the company is improving a bit. The revenue didn't grow that much, but we see a significant increase in net income. We see an overall decrease in the number of paying users, but a higher revenue per user, both especially in the Americas. The cash flow is relatively stable at around 800 million per year, placing them at a ratio between 10 and 15. I'd say this is fair for the company's growth potential, and I see this more as a potential dividend cash cow than a growth stock. Even the expectations are like 2, 3, 5% revenue growth, so there isn't that much they can do organically. They can develop through acquisitions, but we'll get into that later. Financially, they aren't in such a good position, with the current assets above the current liabilities but a lot of long-term debt. The maturities will begin in 2026 and are spread relatively equally, but when they begin to refinance, they might have to increase the interest. So potentially less money to develop. The equity is actually negative, so I'm not really a fan of this balance sheet. But they have a lot of treasury stock, and what's remarkable is that they started the buybacks not at all-time highs, but as the stock began to fall, which is surprisingly rare. That's a buyback yield of around 8% today, so that's definitely quite a bit. So in the future, if they recover, they can use the stock to develop and improve the balance sheet, plus use the money for buybacks to pay dividends instead. That would make the recovery a more high potential one, let's say. Imagine the stock triples and now they have like $1 billion in cash flow and around 2.5–3 billion in treasury stock they can use as they want. So interesting from this point of view. The problem is the competition. Sure, they have some of the most popular dating apps on the planet, but you will always have local and even other global competitors that they have to fight with. Even they have a ton of apps basically cannibalizing each other, and the competitive advantage is very thin. What's today the number 1 dating app in the US can become number 2 tomorrow, and there goes 15% of the revenue, let's say. And the problem is that if more and more people go to one app, even more will follow. It's about the number and, let's say, quality and stuff of the people you find there. Sure, you can use multiple apps, but Match wants to make money and the revenue per user and even the number of users would drop. So they have to spend a lot on user retention and acquisition, meaning especially marketing. They kind of pioneered the dating industry, but now you have even Facebook offering it for ages. It's really not that hard to join the market, and the only big differentiator is the popularity, which can change. So not a terrible company, but you have to be aware that there is risk. Again, a drop in popularity as a result of some random local app rising in a country like Japan can easily make the revenue drop. The debt should be quite sustainable, but that's if they can keep the cash flow at the current level. Drop by 20–30% maybe due to competition and higher interest as a result of refinancing, and then it's kind of on the limit. Still, there is a lot of potential from a stock point of view, because if they recover, they can pay massive dividends and use the treasury stock to develop. If a local competitor becomes too big, they can afford to buy it. However, you have to think at some point what is it that they buy. Because anyone can make a dating app at any time, and what they buy is basically the user base and the popularity, which aren't permanent. They don't really buy assets, and they risk being left with 100 almost dead dating apps in the portfolio. Now, Vodafone, this is a British telecom company that's a leader in Europe and Africa. A majority of the revenue comes from Germany and the UK, and the growth is pretty much all from Turkey. They had some cost savings and layoffs recently and can make about 2 to 2.5 billion euros per year now, which is okay for a 20 billion market cap. That's a ratio of around 10, similar to Verizon and AT&T, so a very normal telecom company in this regard. Financially, they are in an okay position, with the current assets almost matching the current liabilities, which isn't really that terrible. They can be okay with a line of credit, and it will depend on the timing. This is similar to Verizon or AT&T, but with significantly less debt, which is very good. It's also spread until 2060 or more, similar to the other two. But you get around 60 billion euros in equity on a 20 to 25 billion market cap, so there is a huge discount. Even if you take the goodwill out, it's still like 2 times above the market cap, and it's much better than Verizon and AT&T, so that's definitely not something to ignore. The dividend is also much better than Verizon or AT&T, especially after the two went up recently. They pay something like 10%, which is even double what AT&T pays. However, that's pretty much a full payout. They don't have anything left after they pay it, which can be an issue. That means any increase in investments or buybacks, for example, means a cut in cash flow and thus in the dividend unless they want to get into debt for it. They talk about growth, but this is a company where it's more about the synergies and cost savings that they can deliver rather than actual growth. There is a very limited potential to grow organically at this size unless they go into other countries, which can be very difficult. Every continent and even many countries have their own leaders with roots very deep inside the system. We are talking about government contracts, tons of suppliers, stores, partners and so on that make the entry barrier very tough. A way for them to penetrate a new market, however, is through acquisitions. Think about them buying Telecom Argentina or Telefónica Brazil and so on. Then add your know-how and power of negotiation or do other improvements and you generate some value through that. A problem is that two countries, Germany and UK, represent half of the company's revenue. Any kind of recession, which I think they are already into or very close to, can be an issue. This is why focusing on Turkey, and I'd recommend even more countries, should be a priority. However, this is a very defensive industry, but the potential to grow in these two countries, which are extremely digitalized compared to others, is pretty much non-existent. So you have two solid cash cows providing the cash flow needed to develop in other countries. But that might require a dividend cut, even if it's 10-15%, because right now they pay pretty much everything they make. Even with the currently higher capex, that's barely delivering a bit of growth. I think a majority of it is Turkey plus Africa and price increases. But ultimately it's a slow business, so don't expect some huge level of growth. 5, 6, 7% is already very good for such a company. Add some cost savings and a 10% dividend and you can see a very solid long-term payout. Comparing them to Verizon or AT&T, they are better from many points of view. So, not a bad company overall. They are in pretty much an oligopoly, good cash flows, high dividend and significantly better balance sheet than the American counterparts. With rate cuts, a bit of organic growth, significant discount to equity, I think it's pretty likely to see them do well. I think the risk that we maybe don't see right now would be more about the political side. Again, oligopoly, lots of ties with governments, even China, who knows. Plus the classic need to do some massive investing cycles from time to time, which is normal in the industry. So once again, some unique companies that offer interesting perspectives. Some growth, a fragile leadership position, high dividends and so on. Don't forget to check out the affiliate links and the other videos in the series to support me. Again, a single affiliate means like 2-3 months of YouTube revenue and all you have to do is ultimately invest or improve your investing process depending on the website. Again, any suggestion, leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. As always, what I cover in my videos shouldn't be enough for you to make any investment decision, so please do your own research before investing in anything. If you want to see more videos like this one, please leave a like and even a comment to help me out and make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.